everyone, and welcome to Brain Injury SA's 2026 Brain Injury Awareness Week event, Stronger Together. It's wonderful to have you all here with us as we come together to recognise Brain Injury Awareness and Brain Injury Awareness Week and celebrate the strength, connection and community that brings us all together. My name is Abby Bowden and I'll be your host for today's event. I have a personal connection to acquired brain injury, having had a member of my family live with an ABI. As a family member and carer, I understand firsthand the impact that brain injury can have, not only on the person who has the injury, but also the people around them. It's a true pleasure to be part of an event that brings together our brain injury community, and I'm really looking forward to sharing today with all of you. Before we formally open our event, I have a few housekeeping items to run through. Firstly, in the unlikely event of an emergency that requires evacuation, please remain calm and follow the directions of the Convention Centre staff to the appropriate evacuation point. The Brain Injury SA team is also here today to assist you. For those who haven't visited the Convention Centre before, there are toilets, including accessible facilities, located outside through the foyer and past our registration table. If you need any assistance, please feel free to reach out to a Convention Centre staff member or a Brain Injury SA staff member. We also understand that at times you may need to step out or take a break from the event. Our sensory safe space is located just next door to this hall and is available for anyone who needs a quieter space throughout the day. And finally, during the break, we encourage you to take some time to visit our community exhibitors. We are pleased to have a range of organisations here today who support people living with brain injury and their family and carers. Please take the opportunity to visit their tables and have a chat and find out more about the services that they offer. I'd like for us to acknowledge the land that we meet on today as the traditional lands of Kaurna country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd now like to introduce the CEO of Brain Injury SA, Tanya Lancaster, to the stage to say a few words. Thank you, Tanya.
Hi everyone, and thank you. I just want to say a huge welcome firstly, particularly on behalf of Steph and her organising committee from Brain Injury SA. They have done an amazing job and a lot of effort has gone into prepping for today. So can we just give them a quick round of applause? I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to everybody who is joining us online this morning. So this year's event theme is Stronger Together, and it really reflects our commitment to building a stronger brain injury community. It reminds us that no one should have to navigate the journey of acquired brain injury alone, and that by coming together, we can learn from one another, lift each other up, and create a more inclusive and informed community. So our event theme this year also complements the National Brain Injury Awareness Week theme, which is Brain Injury, Many Pathways, One Community. While every person's experience of brain injury is different, we are united by a shared goal: to improve understanding, increase awareness, and ensure that people living with brain injury, along with their families and carers, feel seen, supported, and connected. Throughout this week, landmarks across Australia will be illuminated in blue and purple to help spark conversations about brain injury and show support for the millions of Australians whose lives are affected by brain injury. These colours have been chosen to symbolise both the strength of those living with brain injury and the hope and visibility we are working to create. We're especially proud to say that the Adelaide Convention Centre, where we have gathered today, will also be illuminated in blue and purple this evening as part of that national campaign. So we're hoping to get some photos later today. Today's program has been designed to bring people together through shared knowledge, lived experience, and meaningful conversations. I encourage you to make the most of the opportunities today to connect with one another, visit our community exhibitors, and continue those conversations throughout the day. I just also want to pause and take an opportunity to thank our sponsors today. Without our sponsors, the event doesn't happen. So I do want to say a huge thank you to our presenting partner, the Lifetime Support Authority, and our major sponsor, Livability Care Australia, our silver sponsors, Help at Home and Beneficent. Thank you for your generous support and for helping us to bring together our brain injury community. I just also want to give a quick plug to Flinders University. Are they in here at the moment with us? Yep, down the back here. So these guys are doing some great research that we partner with them on a regular basis, and they are looking for some people to participate in some research around TBI and community engagement. So if you've had a TBI between 10 years and 3 months, that is mild to moderate, they would love you to come and visit them at their stand up the back. So Macon, free plug. To our speakers, community exhibitors and brain injury SA team, thank you for sharing your knowledge, experience and expertise, and for helping make today a meaningful opportunity for our community to connect. And finally, to all of you here today, whether you're joining us in person or you're joining us online, thank you for being part of our community and for helping us to demonstrate what it really means to be stronger together. I hope you enjoy today's speakers. Cheers.
Thank you, Tanya. And now I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Associate Professor Brenton Hordacre. Brenton is passionate about helping people live happier and healthier lives following stroke, brain injury and other neurological conditions. His research focuses on finding innovative ways to improve rehabilitation and ensure that new discoveries can be translated into real-world clinical practice. His work has made a significant impact in the field of rehabilitation, including research into the critical period of brain injury recovery following stroke, new treatments for post-stroke depression, and demonstrating that intensive practice can lead to significant improvements for people living with chronic stroke. His contributions have been recognised through several national and international awards, including the Young Tall Poppy of Science Award and the Brain Injury Foundation Elizabeth Penfold Simpson Prize. Most recently, in July 2026, Associate Professor Hordacre was appointed Chair of Rehabilitation and Brain Health in Ageing at Flinders University, where he leads research activities within the Department of Rehabilitation, Aged and Palliative Care at Flinders Medical Centre. Today he'll be sharing insights into the Stroke Bootcamp, a high-intensity group-based rehabilitation program that delivers 3 hours of task-specific practice each day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks. Research into the program has shown large and meaningful improvements in arm function, even for people many years after their stroke. The program has since been scaled across South Australia, including in regional and rural areas, helping to improve access to effective evidence-based rehabilitation. We're incredibly fortunate to have Associate Professor Hordacre here with us today, and I'm sure you'll agree that his work is an inspiring example of the difference that innovative, evidence-based rehabilitation can make. Please join me in welcoming Associate Professor Brenton Hordacre.
I always never quite remember if I write that stuff and you read it out so beautifully or if it's something that you made up. But that was very kind words, probably something that I wrote, I guess. Is that right? Yeah. And it's always weird to hear that about yourself because, as you can tell, I like to smile and have a good time, and it makes me sound very serious what you read. But look, I really hope you enjoy the presentation that you're about to sit through in the next 30 to 40 minutes. And I was thinking as I was sitting there, why did I get into this field, and I think it's because I like helping people. So you'll see there's the science that comes through in the presentation, which keeps my brain active. But at the end of the day, it's about helping people live happier and healthier lives. So that's really what we're trying to achieve. Thanks for it's Tanya, isn't it? There's a great introduction at the start. You will notice that I'm wearing my best purple and blue outfit. Very lucky. Yeah, I actually was sitting there thinking quite coincidental, because I was standing in the closet for quite a while this morning trying to work out what to wear. But luckily I've selected the purple and the blue. So I'm going to talk about our stroke recovery bootcamp, which has been going for a little while. It's evolved several times. But I wanted to start back at the start about how we got to the bootcamp, and then what it is, and then where we're going with it. So we'll talk about that today. I'm going to try and remember which button to press. Okay, great. So first thing I wanted to say, and this is really what gets me excited, so hopefully you're on board with the party here. The brain's remarkable. So you'll see that today, that it can do a lot of different things. It does that for us automatically. And of course, in recovery, that's an important trait for us as well. So the brain's able to change, and hopefully I'll convince you of that today, if you didn't believe that already. And that's important for stroke recovery. So let's take the first one. So the brain's remarkable. I'm going to play a video for you, which is actually somebody who's had a stroke, but it's really hard to tell. If at the end of the video, you'll notice there's a few less fibres in the brain image on one side. But I'll play it for you, and it's really just something that I look at, and I'm kind of in awe whenever I see the video, and I created the video years ago, actually. And this is all the different pathways within the brain. So they're not coloured like that inside our head, of course. So green is going in diagonal angles, the bluey purple's up and down, and the red's across the brain. And every time I look at that, I think, gee, that's just an incredible video of something that's inside every one of our heads. And as I mentioned, that's somebody that's had a stroke. They've recovered really well. So you can see how it was really hard to tell which side the stroke was on. The brain's remarkable in more than one way. So we're going to play a little game now. So I want you to tell me who you think this person is. Kate's good. I always go to say, I'll say Diana. I was going to say Diana, but I hope that doesn't come across wrong. I look at Kate and I think, gee, it's definitely her. There's a beautiful smile there. Let's flip the image around. So what's happened there? So our brains process that image straight away. You all looked at it and thought, gee, that's Kate. She has a beautiful smile that lights up the room, probably. And yet, we're used to seeing smiles this way, where our smiles face up. And yet so you saw that image with her upside down, but the smile was still the correct way. Straight away, you all saw it was Kate. I've got another famous person for you here. Who's this one? And best of all, my kids love this because it looks nothing like me, except for when I do something like this, like that sort of face. So really easy to create, apparently, with our new AI tools that have taken over the world. So my image is out there in the AI world, apparently. So the brain's remarkable. So it processes that information before we've even had the chance to go, actually, is that smile the right way around? The picture's upside down. We're used to seeing faces with smiles facing upwards. I'm going to go through this story. If you've seen any of my presentations of late, I enjoy this story for several reasons, but I'm going to tell you about how the brain can also change. So that was the brain's remarkable, those pathways, how it processes information. Now it's about the brain's being able to change. So we have this incredible thing called the human eye. We've all got, we're born with two, actually that may not be correct. We've all possibly got two. Most of us in the room probably have two eyes. It allows us to see images, much like we can seeing a tree. But if you go back to physics, and what I remember of physics is Bunsen burners, and I think the physics teacher put something in water and it blew up in the room, which was entertaining. But apparently with a concave surface, the image is actually inverted on the back of the eye. So if you think about the shape of the eye, the image that's processed there, and what it actually is interpreted as is an upside-down tree, in this case, or an upside-down world, much like the upside-down face that we just had before. And what our brain does is process that and says, well, actually, the leaves are in the sky, or the leaves are pointing up and the roots are in the ground. So we're actually going to process that image and flip it around. So the brain's got the capacity to do that. And what greater experiment to do than to make the image that we see in front of the eye inverted? So, of course, you can't do that as easily now. Ethics would be a little bit of a challenge, but back prior to strict ethics committees, I suppose, there was once this study where they gave somebody a set of glasses and it inverted the image, and she wore them for an entire week. So we're going to have a look at what happened when she did that. The first video I'm going to show you, she's just been given the glasses. So it's a matter of hours after wearing them.
Will she be able to make sense of an upside-down world?
So everything's upside down to her now. And you can imagine the trouble you'd have
I'm holding the cup up.
pouring a cup
An
of
hour
coffee.
later, the world is still bewildering.
Got it. It's funny, I can just suddenly do it.
So even that ability to just tip the milk jug into a position to the cup is really difficult for her. And you can hear the cups clinking together as she's sort of seeking that feedback about where the cup and the jug are in space. Now, I did actually get some upside-down glasses, and I must admit, you are welcome to try them. I won't put them on now and pour the water into the cup because it actually makes me motion sick, to be honest. And it is a mismatch of information that comes into the brain. So I know that to pour a jug of water into a cup, it's this sort of movement, but what I'm seeing is inverted from that. And it becomes quite confronting, I suppose, or conflicting to have that information. So that was within hours. So the next video I'm going to show you is a couple of days afterwards, and you're going to see her starting to write. Okay?
On the third day, Susanna tries to write her name without looking.
So she's not looking, so it's just the memory of writing her name now, so not using the visual information. And have a look. You can kind of see it says Susanna. It's not quite straight because she's not looking, but it does say Susanna there. Okay, and in a minute, she's now going to start looking and writing the letters.
I can read that N, but not the rest of it. Shall I try and write it?
So now she's looking and writing. So this is where they get the mismatch of information.
Once she looks, she's able to invert the letters completely. Clearly, in 3 days, she's made progress, integrating upside-down seeing with upside-down moving.
So she's clearly written Susanna upside down and back to front, because that's what the visual information says. And just the precision of writing the letters within 3 days. So she's made progress, the narrator said, which is really that she's tricked her brain within 3 days. So the brain was changing pretty rapidly at that stage. We're going to progress now to a week later. So this is Susanna.
In practice, she can now sign her name to the drawing right side up while looking.
So she's looking, but look at the letters this time. So she actually flipped it. So her brain's now gone, we don't normally have the letters that way around.
The seeing part of Susanna's very flexible brain has somehow matched the unchanged world to her altered vision.
Not bad, hey? Being able to ride a bike with inverted vision. The good news is I rode my bike here today, and you are welcome to borrow the glasses and have a go on my bike outside. No, in all truth, this is actually a pair of glasses from my kids there's a game you can buy at Big W if you want to have a go at it, and my 7-year-old has wore them for about 3 days because he watched this presentation at Aphasia SA, and he then wore them to sleep, and he said, I'm going to have upside down dreams because he's got the glasses on. He's the third child, which tells you enough out of 3. He's quite unique. So what's happened there? So this is how we process visual information. Our eye flips the image because of the concave surface, and our brain tells us, no, it's the other way around. What we've done is tricked the eye, or tricked the information before it gets to the brain by wearing perhaps something like this to invert the image. And then our brain says, oh, so the image is that way. So that was sort of around that first couple of days in Susanna's case. But then after a week, her brain was able to go, no, it's this way around. So we could change the brain in a period of a couple of days, even hours really, but a couple of days, and she's got that information. Now the good news is they took the glasses away from her, and it was actually a much quicker change back to seeing normally. Okay? So our brain had that ability before, and it could recall that capacity to invert the image again rather rapidly. So everything was okay for Susanna. Okay, so the brain's remarkable. Anyone laughing? Not yet. Okay. The brain's able to change. All right. So you've probably seen those before, where you've got the first and the last letter, and they're all in there correct somewhere, but your brain was able to process that word is remarkable pretty quickly. It's able to change. You haven't got the glasses on, but as I said, you're welcome to have a look. And all this is really important for stroke recovery, as well as recovery from a lot of things, to be honest. So let's have a little chat about stroke. So we know our current model, I suppose, is that there's acute stroke centres. So if you had a stroke right now, for example, you'd probably be taken to the Royal Adelaide Hospital for your acute medical management and then sent off to some sort of rehabilitation facility. So I currently work at Flinders RAP, which is the Rehab Aged and Palliative Care Department, so they do inpatient rehabilitation there. A lot of the focus tends to be on walking and mobility, which is why I've used this image here. So once you can take a few steps and get in and out of a car and on and off the toilet seat, then they may send you home to then continue rehab in the community. What we tend to see, and I've worked more at that community end, is a quote like this, and this is actually somebody who told me this direct quote. It's actually, there's someone related to them in the room, actually, now that I think about it. So I won't say their name, but recovery is often incomplete. And this person was told that after a few months, the doctor said this is as good as they'll be. So he was sitting in a wheelchair at this stage, and that he would be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And this is somebody that I saw, I'd have to say, between 10 and 15 years after their stroke, and they were standing in front of me walking in and out of the clinic. So their response to that comment from the doctor was, there was another word in there, but I'll show you. And that's not, I mean, we really see two different types of responses to this comment from medical professionals is, okay, that's the professional opinion, and I'm going to accept it. Okay, or there's the other group of people who are, I'll show you sort of people. And I think we still hear this story now, if I'm completely honest with you, that even, most of their recovery is certainly within the first couple of months. And I just wanted to unpack that a little bit and then talk about what we did with the boot camp. So it's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Because I've said the brain's remarkable. I've told you the brain's able to change. And this is supposed to be important for stroke recovery. But then we've got this narrative happening around 3 months and then no recovery. So is the brain really that remarkable, or is it really able to continue to change beyond the 3 months? So what do I think's happening? So I think the first thing is we have, this is a schematic diagram, somebody who's had a stroke, a decline in function. We'll just give a very general term. And then over a period of time, you see a rather rapid recovery and then a plateau. You've probably even heard that word plateau before. And that the timeline on that can vary. 3 to 6 months is really common in the stroke talk. And originally, this sort of data, the first time it was observed, I think, was 1983, which is a little bit older than me, believe it or not. Actually, not much, only 1 year older than me. And it was fascinating because it was international experts in rehab. They found this interesting trend in the data where most of that recovery is very rapid, but the plateau was what was most interesting. So their comments were, is this a biological limit on recovery? So people can't actually get better beyond that point. But they had some other suggestions as well. And it could be that it's a measurement error. So we're only using tools of some sort to measure recovery. Or maybe we're not giving people enough therapy in the latter stages of their recovery. I think what's happened in this time since, and I'm somewhat guilty of this as well, is that there's been a series of studies which have shown there is a window that is time limited, and that's actually the brain's ability to change. So we mentioned before the brain's able to change, it's really remarkable, and that's important for stroke recovery. We know that, so has recovery stopped, but we know there's this thing called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change, which is happening all the time. When my son wears the glasses, he didn't get inverted dreams, in case you were wondering. It would have been fascinating if he did, though. But we have this capacity for neuroplasticity, which seems to spike with unusual events. So there's an increase in neuroplasticity that happens early after stroke. It was seen in animal models. I said I'm guilty of this because we did do a human physiological study. So we actually did find a small increase in neuroplasticity within about 2 to 6 weeks after stroke, which is actually a good thing. Right? So that's a chance for the brain to recover more rapidly as a result of the injury. Do you reckon, I might do questions at the end, is that all right? Yeah, but do keep it because I want you to come back to me. I've done it once before where I've taken midway questions and it gets out of control. So fascinating, but that's a biological window of enhanced plasticity that just, it's only a limit on when it's enhanced. It doesn't mean that the capacity for neuroplasticity goes away forever. We're all learning to do different things, I hope. So maybe you're learning an instrument, you might be learning a new sport or a new activity, and that's our ability to change and respond is neuroplasticity. We don't have to have had a stroke or had to have had a brain injury to have the capacity for brain change. It's just that there's an increase, so for a brief period of time, and how the brain responds. So the other thing is, I've glossed over the measurement error. Just take my word that it's not a measurement error, and I can explain later. So the other suggestion they had was maybe it's just not enough practice. So how much practice are we doing? I can tell you now there's published data to say that within hospital at the very early stages after stroke, it's about 6 to 7 minutes a day on upper limb recovery. So really limited therapy, and that's it. That's in the acute hospitals. When people go to rehabilitation, they try and increase the amount of practice. It could be a couple of hours a day of therapy. It's not uncommon that people are really tired and they're not actually mentally ready for rehabilitation at that stage, because that could be within a week of stroke. So it may be that it's on offer, but they're not quite ready to do their rehabilitation. And then out in the community, it's somewhere between, on average, I think it's 45 minutes, but even an hour of therapy a week. All right? So it's not a whole lot of practice. And if you know, there was a famous quote by Roald Dahl, actually, who Patricia Newell, so I think it was his second wife, but wife had a stroke and was given an hour a day of therapy. And his response to that was, surely an hour a day is not enough. So how much is enough to make a difference? Well, there's animal studies. Not with that sort of monkey, but with some sort of monkeys or rats. 9,600 repetitions just to get brain changes happening, and that's functional changes in the brain. In humans, a really similar number came up, so 10,000 repetitions. This is a group over in University of British Columbia, and they showed me that tool when I was over there. It's a video game, so just getting you to move your arm. Do that 10,000 times, and you can get a brain change. And we know that brain changes are important for recovery. And this one's a little bit boring, but imagine pressing a button. So to get brain changes, pressing a button, you need to do that 31,000 times before your brain starts to change. Okay, so that's a whole lot of practice, probably not achievable within an hour. I should do the maths on that, how fast you've got to press it to see how many you've got to do. So really, if the question is, is it enough practice? And I've said it's 45 minutes to an hour a week in the community for rehab. So is it enough practice? And is that why we're not seeing brain changes beyond the 3 or 6 months after stroke? A really simple question is, why don't we just give people more practice and let's see what happens? And that was really that's the underlying concept behind our intensive boot camp that we offered. So it was repetitive practice, it was group-based, it was goal-directed, so people came in for a period of 5 weeks. It was all upper limb focused. It's actually in the clinic down the road, believe it or not. And we had groups of 3 to 4, I think we even stretched it to 5 at one point. People with stroke in a room. There was one physio. In the video I'll play in a minute, you'll see there's students involved as well. And that's just because Channel 10 likes to make it look fancy and busy. And they're not in the room, are they, Channel 10? I always say things and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I hope it's not recorded. So it's group-based, it's intensive. We ran it as a randomised trial. So that in a minute when I show you the results, there's a control group. Now the control group did 45 minutes a week of therapy, and that was just their usual care in the community. But the people that did the boot camp got 90 hours of practice. So we did that in a 5-week period, so we lined up with the student placement. So it was 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then a bit of homework on top. So they came in every single day from 10 to 1, and in that same group of people for the whole time. So there's a stronger together is the theme, right? Like it's a really interesting intersection between what we did with this group-based element as well. So everyone says, well, what do you do with someone for 3 hours? So I'll show you a video. I'm always nervous with videos. Let's see if it works. Yep, there's no sound, which is great because that allows me to talk. So yes, we had the technology there. I'm reasonably tall. This is our tallest stroke participant in the video before. So there was the technology. There were some really simple things that people just did at the table. So this is Kmart level stuff in terms of equipment. And we created an equipment list, which you could actually go to either Aldi or Kmart and buy everything for under $200. And that was like a whole trolley full of equipment. And yeah, people just came in, they practiced. In the background of the video, you may not have picked up, there was a big whiteboard. So on day one, it was, write up your goals. And then including on that whiteboard, we'd actually have things, how many cones you stacked today. So next time you came in, you might have stacked 15 cones yesterday. Let's see if you can get enough shoulder elevation that you then go and stack 20 cones or 16 cones or whatever it might be. So there's always this record, and there's also this motivational aspect around goals. and working together. And it was some really interesting conversations sitting to the side of the boot camp and hearing people say, oh, you know, because there's 4 patients in the group and they stay together the whole time. And they'd say things like, you know, when you first came in, you couldn't do that. Remember how, you know, you wanted to hold a fork or something, and now you're able to hold a fork. And then they'd say, oh, yeah, but I haven't improved much. So there's always this internal inability to recognise your improvements, but having the peers there and that support they were able to point out how you've improved across the 5-week program. And it reminds me, the only thing I can liken to that is when you're a young kid and you're growing up and you feel like you never get any taller, but you see an uncle and an auntie you haven't seen for a while, and they're like, oh, you're really tall now. I think it's that external feedback that we're kind of missing, and as you're living that experience, you may not necessarily pick up the day-to-day changes. So the group element was one of the strongest aspects of this project. I'll show you the data. So did it work? So coming in every day, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, which for some people is really scary. It's a big commitment in terms of transport and time. So what happened there? So this particular scale is an upper limb, let's just say movement scale. It's an upper limb impairment scale. And this is the change value from pre to post, which is before the 5-week program, to after 5 weeks. And I told you at the very start it was a randomised trial. So there's some people that did usual care, which turned out to be 44.7 minutes of therapy a week. And doing less than an hour a week does give you virtually no change. Okay? And that's not to discount the value of community rehab. It's just saying that we're probably not hitting the mark in terms of the amount of practice that people need to see an improvement. And maybe that's part of the reason why we see this plateau. Okay, after 3 to 6 months after stroke. So if you did the boot camp and you did 90 hours of task-specific practice over that 5 weeks, you got this huge spike in improvement. So again, it's a change value, a number of around 10. So what does that mean? Because for most of you, you're going, oh, that's a big number. It's a big change from usual care. But we have a way of telling what it's worth. And it's anything above 5.25 is considered clinically meaningful. And what that means, I suppose, is that people should notice a difference, right? So I'll get to, in a minute, I'll tell you what they noticed, because that's probably more of interest than actually a number. So people got better, which is great. We measured a lot of things, and the story's the same, right? So it doesn't matter whether it was quality of life. So if you're familiar with the scales, the ones on the bottom are the quality of life. The top left, I think that's right, I should wear the upside-down glasses. I'm looking at a screen there. The top left is another upper limb movement scale, and the top right is a self-efficacy. So your belief in ability to cope with living with a stroke. If you do intensive practice, you'll improve. If you do usual care, you actually either could decline a little bit or stay about the same. Okay, so what? So we're exceeding some of these meaningful improvements. So we had people that went back to being able to tie the shoelace for the first time. This could be people years after stroke. So remember, we're in that plateau phase of 6 months was our earliest that we could take people, right through to 17 and a half years from memory in that program. People that couldn't have tied their shoelaces for, I don't know who that was, but say 10 years before, were able to go back and now start tying shoelaces. They probably wore slip-on shoes, to be honest, but wanted to get back to tying a shoelace. For somebody in the program, it was really important for them that they could actually bring popcorn to their mouth for the first time after a stroke. They had a family popcorn movie night on a Friday night. I hate popcorn. I used to work at the cinema, and it reminds me of rats. I'm not saying there's rats at the cinema, but there is. And every time I smell popcorn or think of it, so this is a true story. I was once paid to sit in a gold class movie because someone really rich hired the whole cinema, and I had to take orders. And one time I saw a mouse, because there's only 30 chairs in gold class, I saw a mouse sitting on a step eating popcorn watching the movie. I am not joking. So every time I see popcorn and think of popcorn, I think of mice and rats. But for him, it was really important that he could bring the popcorn to his mouth. And that's it actually gave us some really interesting ideas about popcorn, because it didn't matter if he crushed it or if he dropped it. But he was at the stage where he would practice that task at home and actually achieve it. So he's almost doing this spontaneous rehab now that he can actually bring something to his mouth, even though it smells like rats. And this is a different person who, for the first time, again, I can't remember how many years after stroke this was, but they were able to write something. I'm not quite sure of the picture of the house or whatever it is, but it clearly says rehab is hard. And I kept it because I was like, yeah, it should be hard, and you should have to work, and it means he's worked hard, and he has actually got to the point where he could get back to writing something that we can all read. One of the biggest things, and Stronger Together is a great theme, it really came out how the group element was a bit of a peer support network for everybody. I will be completely honest and say I put it as a group of 4 because we get more people coming through the study, because a 5-week intervention is a long intervention, and we were only funded for a certain period of time, so the more we can get people through, the better, and 3 or 4 at a time seemed to work really well. The peer support element was huge, like much more than the upper limb improvements. There's this group in particular who were there actually went through their inpatient rehab together, and then actually coincidentally a lot of them came into to the same boot camp. And there was, for many groups, and in this one in particular, there's tears at the end of the 5 weeks. And it's quite amazing to me to think that people would even come 3 hours a day, every day for 5 weeks. I thought we were going to have trouble with fatigue, transport, disengagement across the 5-week program. I can tell you now that nobody dropped out of the study, that everyone came to the sessions unless they were sick. And in fact, we had trouble turning people away at the 5-week mark. And I actually think it's not because of anything fancy that we did, it's actually the peer support element that was there. So that riding through that journey together, and it didn't matter, I tried once to group by age or whether they were rural or metro, but it didn't matter. I remember one of the 25-year-olds being really good friends with an 80-year-old. It's quite incredible, really, when you think about it. But yeah, it doesn't matter who you put together. They always seem to get along, and they always formed a pretty strong bond over a period of 5 weeks. I think there's something about a habit in 6 weeks, isn't there? Is that right? Someone told me that the other day, and I did think, I wonder if we start to get a habit as well by the 5th week, because people were getting their own equipment out, doing their own exercises, putting it away. They didn't need us. We were fired as physios. So the brain is able to change, and I did say that at the start. And it's important for stroke recovery. This is a different data set, but let me just convince you that the brain does change even in people that have had a stroke. So this is a cohort of people with stroke. This is a functional MRI scan, just also done down the road. I keep pointing that way, but it's probably that way. Not quite sure. And you can see activity. This is a motor network. So again, they've gone and done a 2-week program. So not a lot of practice, but a 2-week, every day, a couple of hours a day of practice. And then that's the change afterwards. So much bigger recruitment in their motor network. So their brain changed just from a short burst of intensive practice. So we've got recovery, we've got brain changes that happen with practice. It doesn't seem to matter that they were years after their stroke, they were still able to improve. So we asked people as well what they thought of these programs. And these are the key themes that came out of it, that intensity matters. So as you'd expect, be prepared to be exhausted and also to rest. So for many people, they'd come in, do their 3 hours and have an afternoon nap after that, and they'd really have to almost timetable that rest in. But the more you can do, the better. The peer support, I've already said this several times, is giving them more hope, meeting others in similar situations. And this is somebody where his wife had said that it's the most positive they've been since the stroke. So we did see there's a lot of things we don't measure in this study, and we probably should, and fatigue, mood, and actually upper limb tone decreased across the studies as well. And we don't measure them, but just we see that as well, that these changes happen. And goals. So I mentioned before, we write goals on the board and we try and encourage as much motivation as we can just to get that buy-in and that engagement with the program. And it's for somebody, it's just the attention they've never received to their upper limb. We still see a lot of people who are given a sling after stroke and then that's kind of it. They don't get a lot of practice. So, a couple of key things. So the brain changes are important for recovery, and that can certainly happen even in a stroke-affected brain. Intensity, timing and opportunity, that seems to be important. So the amount of practice we can do. The timing possibly matters. So doing it earlier after stroke could be important because we've got that spike in plasticity. But we actually got to find a way to give people the opportunity to get this sort of level of practice, because in the community it's pretty hard. But certainly with the right ingredients, recovery is always possible. So what are we currently doing? So we found a program that seems to work, so we're trying to scale that to areas of need. So this is a map of Australia, and the bluer the region is, the more people living with stroke proportionally. And if you've got good eyes, you'll probably notice that South Australia's got 2 large federal electorates. These are federal electorates. And the lighter blue out of the 2, so the northern part of our state, which is called grey, ranks 9th nationally for stroke prevalence, so across the country. And the bottom one, so down south, is called Barker, and that ranks 2nd nationally for stroke prevalence. So South Australia is doing well and not doing so well, with a number of people experiencing stroke and then living with stroke. And anyway, even in rural areas, you're 20% more likely to have experienced a stroke as well. So we've got a bit of a problem there where we were getting people from rural Australia coming to Adelaide to do the program, but it could be a bit of a barrier. So we're now moving out of Adelaide. We have moved out of Adelaide and run the program in Whyalla and Mount Gambier. So the Mount Gambier one is currently going. Whyalla's just on hold as we get a new therapist implemented. But we are looking to see where there's areas of need, because it's not always easy to relocate for a period of 5 weeks. This is the researchy bit of me. I'm kind of interested, can you shift the needle on that? So can you get even more than 10 points? I don't know if you can. We came up with 5 weeks. Maybe it's 6 weeks, who knows? But we're also interested in saying, well, what if you throw in something before the boot camp? So this image shows, people doing boot camp by itself, or boot camp with some sort of exercise or a high intensity exercise before. So we're in the 2/3 of the way through that study. It's called an adaptive platform trial, so we can drop arms if they don't look like they're working. Don't worry too much, it's all the sciencey stuff, but happy to chat about it. But really what I'm interested in is how can we change the way we do practice? So we have this medical model of weekly appointments, and it's kind of like going to see the GP. You've just got a one-on-one session with a physio or an OT or whoever it might be. So can we kind of reevaluate the way we do services for people in the community, or even at the hospital stage, and get better outcomes? I've got a really unique job now where it's sort of research in a rehab department, so I think there's a great opportunity for me to do that. I'm actually still working through some things in my mind, to be completely honest, but I do wonder if the day rehab services are a really good target for something like this, which is the first thing that you tend to get after you leave the hospital. We've worked with a community, I don't know if anyone here is from Euroboost, I should have asked before I put their slide up, but we have worked with a community group, and they did run an intensive upper limb rehab program, and we published some data on that. It's just, they did get NDIS to pay for it, it's just that it becomes very expensive, of course. And we had, as mentioned before, we had trouble getting people to leave the program. So we created something called Reboots, which is one of my creative colleagues that comes up with these names. And the idea was that because people are so good at getting their own equipment out and then putting it away, we just had like an open gym, and they just kind of came in and did their own rehab. So they were almost independent, I suppose, in their rehab programs, and we just didn't want to stop people doing rehab. But that is it. So thank you very much for listening. Do you want me to say, or?
Thank you, Brendan, for such an insightful presentation. We've run out of time for the Q&A session. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a late start. So everyone, I do encourage you to speak to Brendan in the break, and we'll be having a break shortly. So make an effort to do that. I'm sure he'll make himself available.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. We're now going to take a 45-minute break with morning tea available in the foyer. It's a great opportunity to grab a bite to eat and have a chat and connect with others in our brain injury community. We also encourage you to take some time to visit our community exhibitors and sponsors and speakers like Brenton, who are joining us today to learn more about the services. If you need a quiet time or a break, our sensory safe space is available just next door, and we'll resume in about 45 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the break and had an opportunity to meet with our community sponsors and speakers. Before we move to the next part of our program, I'd like to invite Mayo Shadi Hart up to the stage here. She's the Business Development Manager for our major sponsor, Livability Care Australia, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Brain Injury SA for allowing Livability Care to be part of this amazing event today. This is a cause that is very close to our hearts, and we are incredibly proud to be here today to support the important work that BISA does in raising awareness, supporting, creating understanding, and also advocating for people living with a brain injury. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and apologize on behalf of our CEO, Santosh Adhikari, who couldn't be here today, but he gives his best wishes. For those who do not know us, we are a registered supported independent living provider, and we work in collaboration with SDA providers in South Australia and Queensland to bring a unique combination of care and support to NDIS participants. And we've also kind of gone a bit outside of the traditional SIL arrangements to support participants also accessing ILO, ENU, and other models, particularly those with high physical, clinical, and complex support needs. When we look at the people BISA support, there's a very strong connection to what BISA does and what we support in terms of our core values and missions. Approximately 70% of the participants we support live with a brain-related disability or neurological condition, including ABI, TBI, Parkinson's, dementia, Huntington's, and other neurological diagnoses. At Livability Care, we are also very strong advocates for people living with disability being seen beyond their diagnosis and support needs, something that we come across far too often in this sector, as you would all know. This belief has led us to develop a Life Stories project, a partnership that we've recently done with Adelaide University Community Outreach Centre. We work with our participants and social work students to create beautiful stories that reflect participants' life, experiences, challenges, and aspirations. We started this project off in 2025, and we have created 6 amazing stories now. And if you do have some time, you can go out to our booth, and we've got a few stories up there for you to read if you like. Since the Life Stories project has got a lot of good, testimonials and encouragement from participants, stakeholders, and families, we've decided to not just hold it as an internal project, and we will be bringing it out to the public in November 2026. This means the stories will no longer just sit in our organization. This will have the opportunity to reach a much wider audience and help create greater understanding, awareness, and inclusion within our community. So if after today you think you know someone whose story deserves to be heard, please reach out to us, but we will definitely have more information coming towards the end of November. Once again, we're incredibly grateful for BISA for allowing us to be part of this amazing event, and we really look forward to doing many more great events with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadi. It's now my pleasure to introduce our lived experience story speaker, Stevan Stankovic, founder of Be Remarkable Disability Services. Stevan is someone who truly understands the importance of resilience, hope, and finding strength through life's challenges. His journey has been shaped by a number of significant health battles from a young age, each one teaching him the value of perseverance and the importance of supporting others through difficult times. At just 10 years old, Stevan underwent heart surgery to repair a hole in his heart. Only months later, he survived a serious accident that left him with life-threatening injuries. In 2020, Stevan experienced 2 unexpected brain aneurysm ruptures, followed less than a year later by a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. In 2022, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer and underwent surgery. Alongside these physical challenges, Stevan has also experienced periods of anxiety and panic attacks, which became some of the hardest battles he faced. Through faith, determination, and the unwavering support of his family and friends, Stevan slowly rebuilt his confidence and found a renewed sense of purpose. These experiences inspired Stevan to establish Be Remarkable Disability Services, with the goal of helping others to feel supported, encouraged, and empowered to live meaningful and fulfilling lives. Today, Stevan is here to share his lived experience with us. His story is one of resilience, courage, and hope, and I know it will be an incredibly meaningful part of our day. Please join me in welcoming Stevan.
Hello, everyone. Just make sure the levels are all good. Can everyone hear me correctly? All good. First off, I want to thank Brain Injury SA for hosting such an amazing event and for giving me the opportunity to be here today and share my story. I want to thank everyone that came out to see me specifically. I got my mum in the front row crying right now. I got my wife in the back filming and recording. I got work colleagues and friends in the back, cheer squad. Got my brother somewhere around. I got my best man and his wife and his daughter there as well. So, and my wife's cousins are somewhere around as well. So thank you all for coming. All right. I'm going to read off the script so I don't improvise and ramble too much. So let's begin. Thank you all so much for being here today for such an important event. I'm truly grateful to have been asked to share my story, blah, blah, blah. I've already said that part. Before I officially get started, I want to add a disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional, and everything I share with you today comes from my own personal experience going through a variety of health challenges. If anyone feels uncomfortable with the stories or images I'm about to share, please feel free to step out of the room if you need to. Now, before I take you down the rabbit hole of hospital rooms, brain surgery, medical scans, and more, I want to start telling you who I am when I'm not a patient. Make sure this clicker works. No? Sorry, people. Is that one of these buttons? One there. There we go. First and foremost, I'm a father and a husband. I'm a lover of music, I play guitar, and I'm into art. And nothing brings me more joy than playing with my kids and spending quality time with my family. Today, I'm also the founder of Be Remarkable Disability Services. But if you met me back in my teens or early 20s, you'd have known me just as the guy who loved to be creative and who suffered from a lot of anxiety. Way back in June 1999, when I was 10 years old, I had heart surgery to close a hole in my heart. A secundum ASD using an Amplatzer device. I probably butchered that pronunciation, mind you. 6 months after that, I accidentally ran through a glass door and sliced my hands wide open. There was blood everywhere, even on the ceiling. And for a minute, it looked like I might not have hands to play with toys, let alone to play music with one day. I'd have to dig through the medical records to say for sure, but from memory, around 70 to 80% of the tendons and veins in my arms were cut. I'm lucky to be alive just from the blood loss alone. Miraculously, I kept full use of my hands, and today I get to play music for a living with our participants. Throughout my teens, I was a teenager, like any other teenager, sorry. I wanted to be cool. I even had a rat's tail to really stand out. I looked confident on the outside, but inside I was crippled by anxiety and OCD. In my early 20s, I watched my dad pass away in my arms from bowel cancer. That loss really affected me and amplified my anxiety and fear to a whole new level. I spent years feeling like I was constantly running out of time, waiting for the next tragedy to hit. Then came my early 30s, and life seemed to finally smooth out. In late 2019, I met an incredible woman who is now my wife. It was all sunshine and rainbows, and for the first time in a long time, I felt positive about my future. And then, mid-2020 happened. One night in June 2020, out of nowhere, I got hit with a violent headache that stopped me dead in my tracks. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Like a knife being driven straight into my head, I was shaking, nauseous, and rushed to my local hospital. I stayed overnight for observation. They didn't run a CT scan or an MRI. They told me it was a stress attack and sent me home the next day. Unfortunately, because no MRI or CT scan was done, my current doctors can't say for sure what happened, but their theory is that it was the first step of a much bigger challenge to come. I was stiff and uneasy for weeks, thinking, okay, I just need to cut back on stress. Fast forward 2 months to August 2020, it happened again. Only this time it was far worse. I suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm on my anterior communicating artery, causing a subarachnoid hemorrhage, a severe brain bleed. The symptoms hit me like a wall: a blinding thunderclap headache, neck stiffness, blurred vision, and total confusion. I remember lying on the floor in my mum's spare room trying to catch my breath. My wife's granddad heard I was unwell and came over to check on me. I barely remember him coming into the room, turning up, looking at him, and the next thing I knew, blank. I woke up in the hospital, floating in and out of consciousness. Now, medically speaking, I was extraordinarily lucky to have arrived in hospital in good neurological condition, given the severity of the bleed. But the reality on the ground was terrifying. I remember sitting there disorientated, thirsty, and barely catching a fragment of a conversation with a doctor. I don't remember much of what was said, but I do remember him basically telling me, if you don't have surgery to fix this right now, you're going to die. Naturally, fear took over in that moment. On August 17th, 2020, I went in for emergency brain surgery to clip the aneurysm. Funny enough, today is actually the 6-year anniversary of that day. What are the odds? Next thing I knew, I woke up in ICU with tubes coming out of my head, facing immense pain and a completely changed world. The immediate challenge wasn't just the physical pain, it was a total shift in identity and independence, going from an active guy running around to someone who could barely move without assistance was a shock to the system. But right there beside me was my biggest turning point, my support system. My wife, girlfriend back then, who's in the back right now, was in the final week of her university degree to become a developmental educator. While I was laying in bed at the Royal Adelaide Hospital, she put me above everything else to make sure I was looked after. During all this, she still managed to complete her studies with top grades and even won an award for being the top student in her class. I'm very proud of her. Actually, I'm going to improvise right now as well. Thank you for being there for me this whole time. You could have left so many times throughout our journey. You had more challenges for a young girl at the time than anyone should have experienced, and I'm forever grateful. I know I don't say it enough, but I am grateful for everything you have done and do today for us. Thank you very much. I love you dearly. Now I lost my spot in the speech. All right. All right. Also, during that time, I was fortunate enough to have the support of family and friends around me. They were there for me when I needed them most, and honestly, they played a huge role in helping me stay mentally strong through it all. My mum, my brother, everyone else, thank yous for helping me out. I was in hospital for 14 days, and my goal was simply to get through each day. No grand plan, just gaining a bit of ground, because it felt like I was floating with no control over my own life. I was tired and in pain. What made things harder was that the pain medication, which was supposed to help me, often left me feeling terrible mentally. Because of that, there were times I chose not to take it. Not recommended, by the way, after brain surgery. I remember one dark afternoon, I was alone in a hospital room, looking out the window, and the physical agony was so brutal that for a moment, a brief, scary moment, I genuinely thought about jumping out the hospital room window. Thankfully, that moment only lasted a second, but it was still a terrifying glimpse into how heavy brain trauma can weigh on your mind. When I did take my pain medication, apparently it loosened me up quite a bit, and I was quite the jokester. I recall joking around with everyone, including the nurses, and I accidentally and quite innocently told one of the nurses that her hair looked like a lion's mane. Well, a few days later, she came back to work with a brand new haircut and a very different attitude towards me. After being in hospital for 2 weeks, I was finally given the all clear to leave. I ended up moving into my mum's to recover because I couldn't care for myself. I spent months bedridden watching every show Netflix had to offer. My mum had a tiny backyard at the time, but it was just big enough for me to start practicing walking and rebuilding my strength again. I started by shuffling metre by metre, and eventually that turned into proper walking. I stayed at my mum's for about 3 months before I was finally able to move back home. Little by little, life started to get normal again. About 8 months after my surgery, I returned to work for my former employer, and during that time I also got engaged. But life wasn't quite the same. I now had a big scar on my head, and that became a part of who I was. I tried to see the funny side of it and told myself that it gave me a bit of street cred. But just as I felt like I was getting back on my feet, life decided it wasn't finished testing me. While playing guitar in a music store, the entire left side of my upper body went numb and had a burning sensation. I tried to write it off as leftover nerve issues from the brain surgery. Little did I know. But the symptoms stayed. My doctor's referral got lost in the system, and after spending months of chasing everything up, I was finally diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in September 2021. Then, 7 months after that, in April 2022, during a routine GP visit, my doctor asked, "Is there anything else bugging you?" I wasn't planning on mentioning anything, but I figured I might as well tell him about the faint pain in my right testicle that I dismissed as normal. Anyway, an ultrasound later, I was told I had testicular cancer. On April 28th, 2022, I was back on the operating table. When you go through a ruptured brain aneurysm, an MS diagnosis, and cancer, all in the span of less than 2 years, your perspective on life doesn't just shift, it gets completely rewritten. After 8 months off, I tried to go back to work for my former employer, but I quickly realized the standard 9 to 5 mold didn't fit my new reality anymore. My energy was different, my body was different, and my priorities were completely transformed. During my recovery, I also noticed massive gaps in how support is delivered. I saw how rigid structures can be and how hard it is to find care that actually understands the lived experience of brain injury, neurological conditions, and other disabilities. I realized I didn't just want to fit back into someone else's system. I wanted to build something better. That's why I started Be Remarkable Disability Services. I wanted to create an organization driven by lived experience and a desire to help people be the best they can be. I wanted to offer flexibility, understanding, and support on our participants' terms, not just our terms. When you've been the person lying in a hospital bed, relearning to walk in a 10-meter yard, or sitting in a clinic receiving shocking news, you look at disability through a completely different lens. Be Remarkable Disability Services was born out of a desire to make sure no one feels just like another case file in the system. Today, my wife and I are blessed with our daughters. Be Remarkable is growing every year, and I still play music, create art, and spend as much time with my family as I can. Do I still have moments of fear and uncertainty? Absolutely. Fear doesn't magically disappear after trauma, but my journey through all this taught me one simple, grounded truth that I want to leave with you today. If you're going through crap in your life, being depressed about it doesn't clean up the crap. The situation is still there. You don't have to put on a fake smile or pretend everything is brilliant when it's not. But you can make the choice to push forward and become the best version of yourself out of it. Improvement doesn't happen in huge leaps. It happens meter by meter in a small backyard. It happens when you choose to focus on being a little bit better for yourself, for your family, for your friends, and for your community every single day. When you take those small steps and build real connection with the people around you, fear slowly starts to lose its power. In its place, you find a sense of peace, strength, and purpose that you never knew you were capable of holding. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story. I truly appreciate it, and I hope it reminds you that no matter what challenges life puts in front of you, they can be faced one step at a time. I look forward to seeing each of you overcome the barriers in your own lives and discover just how strong you really are. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you very much. That was fun. Thank you. Should I come there? Oh, yes. If anyone has any questions, now's your time to ask. And I will just let you know that I'm not a medical expert, so I can't answer specific medical questions, but if it's about my lived experience, I'm happy to talk about it. Yep, go ahead.
This isn't technically a question. This
Yeah?
is just to say you are absolutely amazing. Now I know why it's called Be Remarkable.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm grateful to be here and everyone clapping, but to me, I'm just doing what I would normally do anyway. I'm just pushing through every single day, but it's great to, you know, hopefully I'm inspiring some people that are going through some challenges as well, so that's great. We've got someone in the back. Thank you for being here. Honestly, a lot of people, I appreciate the kind words. A lot of people that have come up to me today so far have gone through similar experiences, and yous are all like amazing in your own ways. Each one of us, you know, applaud everyone here that has been through something similar. So good on you all. Anyone? Got someone at the front? I was, at the time, I was a team leader at a big disability organisation running multiple SEAL houses. So it was a struggle to fit in, get back into the role that I had before and give the same level of performance that I could have. So the organisation was great, there was no complaints there, it just wasn't the right fit at the time, and I wanted to make a change. So yeah. Anyone else? Someone at the back?
Thanks for sharing your story, Stefan. But
You're
can
welcome.
you tell us a little bit about your music?
My music? Well, I'm very passionate about my music. I've been playing guitar for approximately 20 years, and right now it's amazing. I always wanted to be a rock star when I was younger, as every guitarist does. And then you get older and life happens, and you have kids and all that. And honestly, I'm extremely grateful for where I am right now. I would rather have my kids and my beautiful wife over there. But I feel like a rock star already because I play music for a living and I help people put on smiles on their faces, and I get paid for it as well. And, you know, we're making the world a little bit better. So I feel like a rock star. I kind of made it already, so I guess I am a rock star. But the music, we support people, you know, in their daily lives or music, whether it be someone wanting to actually learn an instrument, or if it's just someone that likes music and wants to listen to music on the way to the doctor's office, we can help with that. And that's what really differentiates us from a lot of other companies, that we really focus on the music side. So, you know, if you want to, you know, anyone that wants to learn music or enjoy music, send them our way and we'll see if we can help. Thanks. Got one up here. Appreciate all the questions, people. I wasn't expecting this. Honestly, the support system, like my wife, my mum, my brother, everyone, especially my wife, like she was there every step of the way. Like she put up with a lot more crap than she needed to. That was a big one. Being focused on moving ahead and trying to be better out of it. I've always been interested in personal development and trying to be better. Even when I was younger, I used to attend seminars and spent probably more money than I should have on a lot of seminars. But just pushing forward, that was the main thing, no matter what, because it does get dark sometimes. And, you know, we all have those dark moments. Even now, I'm in pain right now as I speak. The MS symptoms, I can feel it right now burning. But I'm not focusing on that. So that would be the tip I give someone, is to focus on where you want to go, who you want to be for yourself, for your community, for your family, whoever, and try not to focus so much on the crap, because the crap's still going to be there, but at least you can push forward to where you want to go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I reckon we're done.
Thank you, Stevan.
All right. Thank you very much for having me here today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stevan. I'm sure you will all agree his journey is extremely remarkable. Our next session is one that really speaks to the heart of this year's theme, Stronger Together. I'm pleased to introduce Frances Coleman, Physiotherapy Discipline Lead at Brain Injury SA. Frances will explore the impact that peer support can have on recovery, connection, and building a sense of community following brain injury. Frances will then facilitate a lived experience panel featuring Brain Injury SA peer mentors who will share their personal experiences of living with an acquired brain injury, the value of connecting with others who truly understand the journey. Please join me in welcoming Frances and our peer mentors, Sue, Laura and Joe.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm really here just to give a bit of a background on the program, and then I'm going to hand it over to our lovely peer mentors. So I manage the peer support program, and we've had a few themes about, that stronger together, and even Brenton was talking about the, importance of peer support. And peer support can be in a group setting or it can be on a one-to-one, and what I'm really focusing on is in that one-to-one relationship. So between those two individuals, where there's sort of shared experience, where one, a mentor, provides support to another, a mentee. And the idea really is that the mentor is somebody who's maybe a little bit further along in their brain injury journey, that can maybe share some insights of their experience to support somebody who's a bit early on in their brain injury journey. So our program at Brain Injury SA, it's been running since 2022, and it is a grant-funded program funded by the Lifetime Support Authority, which allows us to provide it for free to adults with an acquired brain injury, and it assists us to set up one-to-one mentoring sessions, and our three mentors here work as a part of that program. So peer mentoring, there is some evidence out there, and that evidence is growing, and it sort of talks to the fact that there's the potential for improving confidence for people, reducing isolation and loneliness, increasing hope and sense of belonging, as well as that stronger social support and more connectedness, and that improved quality of life. So the next couple of slides, in a moment we're going to hear from the mentors, but I've just put together some of the feedback from our mentees, so some of the quotes. So we do a survey at the start and at the end, and we're still collecting a lot of that information, but just to kind of hear their perspectives. So there's a few different themes that emerge. So there's a real big focus on that shared experience, so having those common challenges and feeling like they were truly understood. And that they, met somebody that they could relate to. There was also a lot of themes around connectedness and that sense of loneliness. So people saying that they, they felt like they weren't alone, and that they felt connected with a community. And another theme that we noticed was that sort of hope and encouragement. So people feeling lifted and encouraged. They might be able to achieve their goals, but also thinking about their goals as potentially being a bit further along than they initially thought, and that it really helped give them hope that they would slowly improve. So now I'm going to come over to these guys and we're going to ask some questions. Is this, it's working? Okay. It's on. Is yours working?
No. Oh, yes.
All right, so my first question is for you, Laura. So you've been a mentor since this program began. Can you talk a bit about your experience as being a mentor?
Yeah. So just a quick rundown of my story. I was going to a music festival and I got hit head-on by a man on drugs, going about 140 kilometres on the highway. So I was airlifted to Melbourne Hospital and went in for emergency surgery. I had a stroke in the car and have a brain injury because of it now. So waking up in ICU, I honestly felt like nobody was home. And I had to learn how to walk and talk and do all that sort of stuff again. I have aphasia, so that's been incredibly difficult. But my mum started Googling to find support for me. Physically, I was getting a lot better, but mentally, awful. So I eventually found a brain injury SA, and walking through the door and realising there is like a huge opportunity, it just made my heart so full. Like walking through the door and realising that there are so many people with brain injuries and we can sit down and have a chat, it was the most incredible experience of my life. My dad came with me because I was so terrified to walk into that room, but I'm so glad that I did. I honestly wanted to like set up a tent and grab a sleeping bag and never wanted to leave. So I felt like I was really isolated and alone, and walking in, it made me feel so hopeful, and like the sense of community was absolutely incredible. So by week 8, my dad stopped coming and I started going by myself, which is just the most I felt so proud of myself. So I started volunteering doing this role, and then about a few years later, someone pulled me aside and asked if I wanted to work in the support, the peer mentor space, and I am so thankful for that. I love what I do, and it's so beneficial not just for me, but also the clients. We just get on like houses on fire. It's honestly just the most incredible experience.
Thank you, Laura. All right, so next question is for you, Joe. I know that being a mentor means a lot to you. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you when you met a mentor when you were in inpatient rehab?
I'd been in rehab for a couple of months at the time, and they were getting ready to talk about home visits, and it scared the crap out of me. I hadn't been home for 5 months, and I really didn't know what to expect. And so they decided that my physiotherapist hooked me up with a peer support mentor. And I really didn't know what this person was going to be able to tell me, or, I didn't know what to think. And in walked this amazing person. She was gorgeous, she was happy, she was smiling, and I'm thinking, what are you going to tell me? And then she told me her story and what she had overcome to get where she was today. And for the first time, I felt seen, like somebody understood me. And I remember looking at her thinking, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to be a peer mentor. The connection, the way I would say something and she would just look at me and nod and smile. I didn't have to try and explain it. And for the first time, I felt emotionally connected to somebody. And it's not to say I didn't have an amazing support network. I had a beautiful family, beautiful doctors and nurses, but it wasn't the same as having a person. So I discharged from Repart, from Hampstead. I got my licence back, I got my independence back, and then I became a peer support mentor, firstly in the rehab facility, but now through BSA. And it's amazing. It heals me while you're helping someone else, to make them feel not so alone and to be part of a community. And it's seriously the best thing I've ever done. So yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Next question is for you, Sue. So you worked in healthcare as a nurse for 40 plus years. What has been your experience of being on the receiving end of healthcare, and why do you think it? And why do you think it's important that we have peer mentors?
Having watched many years of it, even after 40 years of nursing, I didn't realise what was out there as far as rehab and things like that and support goes. So I used to nurse CVAs, or cerebral vascular accidents, strokes, at the coalface. So when they first came in and when they were on the ward, but I never worked rehab when I was nursing. So that meant that I didn't see what happened afterwards. I'm pretty sure back then, which was many years ago, it was probably go home, sort yourself out, and sadly there was a lot of used to come in with a stroke and they'd have one side paralysed. So I don't know how they all went eventually, but they used to lament that I can't cook anymore, I can't do this anymore, I can't look after the grandchildren. And so I never saw them beyond that point until it happened to me. And I just want to interrupt myself, can I do that?
You go right ahead.
Stevan did. I just wanted to call out a couple of people if they could stick their hands up. Lucy and Chris. Is that you over there? Yeah. Hi. These two people are amazing. They all went through rehab at REPAT. You don't mind me talking about you two? And now to see them here today is just fantastic for me because I looked after Chris and Lucy a little bit at REPAT as a volunteer, and to have them come to something like this with brain injury SA means they've moved on and they've looked around and they've connected with who they needed to connect with, and that's part of mentoring, and I think that's fantastic. So congratulations, Chris. I see you up and around. Yeah. So I didn't mean to do that to embarrass them, but so my story is very similar to Stevan's, where I had an aneurysm bleed, and Brenton might be able to clarify, but I had the thunderclap headache as well, and I'd never heard of that until it happened to me. So I was sitting outside and suddenly this headache came out like there was a sword going through your head, and I said to my husband, I think I'm having a stroke, you need to call an ambulance. He said, no, you're not, because the obvious signs of stroke weren't there, so there was no facial droop. Anyway, you haven't wagged the pen at me yet. I digress a lot, so our signal is if Francis starts wagging a pen, it's because I'm blabbing on too much. But, you know, in all this time, I'm 5 years post, and in all this time, Stevan's the first one who's actually talked to me about, or I've heard talking about thunderclap headaches. And I don't know if it pertains particularly to aneurysm bleed over perhaps a straight stroke, or I don't know. Yeah, it's the worst headache you could ever get. I was never prone to migraines, but people say, you know, it was just horrific. And it comes on like bang, that's it, it's there. So yes, fast forward from there, ambulances, ICU, I presume, craniotomy, and eventually I found myself at horrible Hampstead. No offence to anyone that works there. But that building is disgusting, I can tell you right now. The plumbing needs doing, everything needs doing. Oh, are you waggling pen? Yeah, she's waggling the pen at me.
It only works if you look at me, Sue.
I can't see out of my side of my eyes. I'm peripherally blind, so I said, you're going to have to throw it at me. But the girls are supporting, so that's good. And then, yeah, went to Harrable Hampstead, and then the brain injury unit there decided to move to REPAT. And I was given the choice. I said, yeah, I'm out of here. See you later, I'm going to REPAT. Beautiful, ensuite loos, big bathrooms, fantastic. But there I was suggested to me that I look at volunteering and coming back to the brain injury unit, as there was I was enduring COVID, so it had ripped the volunteer unit to pieces, and they weren't allowed on site, and having gone back to it later, I realised what I missed out on when I was in rehab, because there was no volunteers, there was no mentors there to help you out, except for the clinicians, which were all fantastic. So the physios and everyone, nurses, not so much the doctors, they sort of came in, went, hi, am I better? No, you didn't talk to me. Out, in they come, out they go. It's like an episode of what's those little things that go, nah, I'm... But yeah, REPAT was very different to Hampstead, and I think it was basically the facilities, because a lot of the staff that went from Hampstead went up to REPAT, thank goodness, because they were a great bunch. And then so I was home, discharged eventually from REPAT when my social worker told me I was spending $100 a day sitting in there waiting to be discharged, because one of my conditions was to have support walkers in place. Pardon? Is my what? Yes, Store Road Repat Brain Injury Unit there, yeah. And
So, Sue,
now I've lost the track.
it's lovely to hear your experience.
Yeah.
And in the different buildings that they were experienced.
But mentoring is,
But I'm just wondering, because we've got maybe a few minutes left.
All right.
I was wondering if you could sort of sum up.
Get to the point.
Well, it's your experience, and only you can tell that story, Sue.
I know.
But I guess, you know, for people that maybe haven't had a mentor, or, you know, and having worked in healthcare, you know, you've worked with, as you know, as clinicians, and, you know, even just to explain it to me as a physio, you know, why do we have mentors, or do you know?
I think we have mentors to help people navigate the world out there, the new outside world that every stroke, I presume, survivor needs to understand, because you wake up, as someone said earlier, in a hospital or in a rehab unit and you go, oh, who am I? And my husband actually said that to me at one stage. He said, I have to learn who you are again. And I'm like, oh, what the hell does that mean? Yeah. But it's really scary. And to have someone to be able to talk to beyond the clinicians who are looking after you, even though they were great, is just super.
That's
and
lovely.
To be able to join into the brain injury courses that are available, often driven by mentors, other mentors who they have a brain injury, is fantastic. So I encourage anyone who can get into brain injury and do their courses, do it, because that changed my life.
That's beautiful, Sue. Thank you. So.
And support workers. I want to talk about support workers.
So thank you very much, Sue, for sharing that. I love hearing your story.
I know. Waggle.
But I thought maybe we could come for some last thoughts from, maybe we'll come to you, Joe, if there's any sort of last thoughts that you think you'd like to share with everybody here.
I truly believe that I did... Sorry, whoops.
Oh, sorry.
I truly believe that I didn't survive what I did to go back and just do anything. I did it to be there for people that are going through their journey, to form that community, to give them a purpose, and to let them know that, you know, life does get better. So yeah, that's why I think I survived.
Thank you, Joe. All right. And Laura, any final thoughts to share before we wrap up?
It was a really, really scary experience to go through what I've been through, but I'm so glad to be where I am today, and I get to support people one-on-one, and group sessions is just the most incredible experience.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Francis, and our peer mentors, Sue, Laura and Joe, for sharing your experiences and insights with us today. What an inspiring reminder of the strength that comes from connection, shared experience, and knowing that you're not alone in your journey. Thank you for your honesty and openness, and for helping us to better understand the impact that peer support can have for people with acquired brain injury. And now we've reached the final part of our event, and the one of the most anticipated moments of Brain Injury Awareness Week each year. It's time to present the Embrace Life After Brain Injury Award. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Executive of the Lifetime Support Authority, who will present this year's award. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Peter Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see so many faces here today. As you just heard, I'm Dr. Peter Smith. I'm the Chief Executive of the Lifetime Support Authority. Before we recognise this year's nominees, I want to share a little bit about what we do at the Authority. That's our banner there. So the state government has set up a lifetime support scheme, and we are proud to administer that scheme on behalf of all South Australians. What the scheme does is it plans and funds treatment, care and support services for people in South Australia who have been catastrophically injured in motor vehicle accidents on our roads. Now, the injuries that we cover include brain and spinal cord injuries, amputations, burns, and blindness. Now, as you know, these can have a lasting impact on a person's life. What we do at the authority is we work closely with the person affected by the injury and their families and providers and supports. Our goal is to support each person to have recovery to the extent that they can and independence, and also, as you've heard today from others, community and connection. The Embrace Life After Brain Injury Award celebrates the strength, resilience, and determination of people living with acquired brain injury. It recognises individuals who have embraced life after injury, overcome challenges, achieved personal goals, and made a positive impact in their communities. Every nomination received this year tells a story of courage, perseverance, and possibility. While each journey is different, each reminds us that life after brain injury can be filled with purpose, achievement, and connection. This year we received nominations from 9 extraordinary individuals. Thank you to everyone who took the time to submit a nomination. Your nominations not only recognise the achievements of these remarkable individuals, but also celebrate the strength of the brain injury community in South Australia. Each nominee will receive a certificate along with a copy of the nominations submitted on their behalf, acknowledging their achievements and the recognition they've received by being nominated. What I'll do now is recognise each of our nominees. They are Melissa Hartman, Liv Ricks, Sky Zesty, Lisa Spawn, Gary Trudgett, Georgina Coventry, Joseph Abella, Paige Harkness, and Ramon Watson. Please join me in congratulating all of our nominees on this wonderful recognition. And now it is my absolute pleasure to announce the recipient of the 2026 Embrace Life After Brain Injury Award. This year's recipient is Georgina Coventry. Before we ask Georgina to come up, I'll just share a little bit about her story. Georgina is 28 years old. She was involved in a serious car accident on the 8th of March, 2023. Georgina sustained complex and life-threatening injuries, including a brain injury, multiple spinal and neck fractures, significant facial trauma, resulting in 100% vision loss in her left eye and a paralysed eyelid, facial scarring, broken ribs, and a ruptured spleen. Georgina spent about 14 hours in surgery at the Royal Adelaide Hospital with 5 specialist teams working to save her life. Her surgeries included the insertion of spinal rods, reattachment of her eye, and the insertion of titanium plating into the area surrounding her left eye. Over the past 3+ years, Georgina has undergone further surgeries, including the removal of her spinal rods and plastic surgery on her face. Throughout her recovery, she's had to learn to manage her diverse healthcare teams while continuing to work extremely hard with her physiotherapists and other healthcare providers to improve her strength and learn to live with her new normal. Of all her injuries, Georgina's brain injury has had the most significant impact on her life. She experiences extreme fatigue, an inability to concentrate, memory loss, difficulty following conversations, and social challenges, as well as weakness on one side of her body, which tires easily. Despite the extremely difficult road to recovery and the ongoing pain, fatigue, headaches, and memory loss she experiences, Georgina has shown a desire to live a fulfilling life and continue doing some of the things she enjoyed prior to her accident. Georgina joined the Hills Running Club, which trains at the SA Athletics Stadium, where she competes as a 100-metre runner. In 2025, Georgina was identified by the South Australian Sports Institute as an identified athlete and was recently officially classified as a T38 para-athlete, which is a classification associated with her brain injury. Georgina has ambitions to compete for Australia as part of a national team and has her sights firmly set on this goal. She has embraced the opportunities that South Australian Sports Institute has offered her, including most recently participating in a para-athlete trial program to identify other sports that might suit her. Georgina has also accepted the opportunity to work with the SAPOL Road Safety Awareness Group as a road safety ambassador. She also participates in the RAH Party program, where she speaks to school students who have recently begun driving about her lived experiences as a serious car accident survivor. Georgina enjoys giving back to the community and hopes to reach these young people, even in a small way. Public speaking with a brain injury and limited vision is no easy feat. And although she regularly becomes confused or loses track of her speech, she continues to commit to this important work. Georgina is a kind, considerate, and amazingly resilient young woman who refuses to give in to the cards that have been dealt to her. Her achievements are a testament to her strength and resilience, and she continues to show what it means to embrace life after brain injury. Big congratulations for Georgina, who I invite to join me on stage and accept her award. Once again, Georgina, thank you.
Congratulations, Georgina, on receiving the 2026 Embrace Life After Brain Injury Award. What wonderful and well-deserved recognition of your achievements. Please join me in giving Georgina another round of applause. As we come to the end of our 2026 Brain Injury Awareness Week event, I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who has helped make today possible. Firstly, thank you to our valued sponsors, presenting partner, Lifetime Support Authority, Major sponsor, Livability Care Australia, and silver sponsors, Help at Home and Beneficent. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank our community exhibitors, Relationships Australia SA, Carers SA, the Orange Butterfly Foundation, Aphasia SA, Flinders University, and On Call SA Care. Thank you to Frank Lynch for capturing today's event as our official photographer. We also extend our thanks to the Adelaide Convention Centre team for helping us deliver today's event and live stream. A heartfelt thank to our speakers for sharing your knowledge, expertise and lived experience with us. Associate Professor Brenton Hordacre, Stevan Stankovic from Be Remarkable Disability Services, Francis Coleman from Brain Injury SA, and Brain Injury SA peer mentors Sue, Jo and Laura. Thank you. And finally, thank you to every one of you for joining us today, whether you're a person living with brain injury, a family member, carer, health professional, support worker, researcher, advocate or community member. Your presence here has helped to make this event what it is. This year's theme, Stronger Together, reminds us that meaningful progress happens when we come together to share knowledge and support one another and strengthen our community. We hope you found today's event informative and inspiring, and a reminder that no one has to navigate the journey of brain injury alone. Thank you for allowing me to be your MC today. It's been a privilege to share this event with you. We wish you all a safe journey home, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.